everyone, and welcome back to the MFT YouTube channel. It's Carolyn here, and I'm super excited to share another interactive card process video with you. It features the new Cafe All Day dynamics, and I paired them with the Meet in the Middle interactive dynamics. It just cracks me up every time I pull that pull tab and see those two coffee cups meet in the middle. I can't wait to show you how it works. The Meet in the Middle interactive dynamics have dies to cut a pull tab, 3 different sizes of linkages, and some circle die cuts, or what Laura calls donuts. I'll need a large and a medium linkage for both sides of my pull tab, and I want to make sure that the mechanism is good and sturdy, so I cut 4 each of the large and medium linkages, and I'll layer those together with adhesive. I die cut 8 of the donuts, as I'll need 4 for each side of the mechanism. I die cut the 2 coffee cups from Poppy, Craft, and Smooth White cardstock using the Cafe All Day dynamics. I stamped the cups using the all lined up background using black licorice ink, and I stamped the knitted sweater background onto the sleeves using Sweet Tooth pigment ink. I'm adhering the pieces together with double-sided tape and tape runner adhesive. I wanted this card to have a winter feel to it, so the all lined up background was as close to a buffalo plaid pattern as I could get, and the knitted sweater background was perfect for the cup sleeves. Now I'm layering the mechanism pieces together with a glue pen and tape runner. I haven't tried to create one of these mechanisms without doubling up on the parts, but it's very possible that you don't need to do this, especially if you use heavier cardstock. I'm using Smooth White cardstock, which is 100-pound weight, but I'd rather be safe than sorry. I'd hate to get it all assembled and then find out that the mechanism falls apart mid-pull. I also wanted to mention that I chose to use both the large and medium linkages because I knew I needed to have plenty of room between the mechanism and the 2 cups. This is the part of making one of these cards that's a bit arbitrary. You'll find as you make these that you'll get better at deciding which of the linkages to use together to make your card work. Honestly, I just guessed that the large and the medium would work, and I was right. But if you try one configuration of linkages and you find that it doesn't work, try a different configuration before you assemble the whole thing. It's relatively easy to disassemble things if you do it before you glue everything down. Okay, so now I have 2 panels that I die cut using the second to the largest of the A2 rectangle stack set 2 dynamics. One of these panels will be used for creating our scene, and the other one will be used for attaching our mechanism. I die cut some snowdrifts that I glued together, and I've traced them onto the scene building panel. I'm using some Summer Splash dye ink to lightly blend an icy background. Once I finish that, I can erase the pencil line. Now I'm positioning the 2 cups on the scene building panel to get an idea of where they need to be placed in order for them to meet properly once they're attached to the mechanism. Once I have them where I want them, I'll use my pencil to trace around the outside edge of the cups. And you'll notice that I placed a pencil mark at the top edge of the panel to give me an idea of where the center of the panel was. This really helped me to position the cups properly. Now I'm using my T-ruler to mark the centers of the cups. Since they're a little top heavy, I figured it'd be best to attach the cups to the mechanism towards the top of the cups. Once I have those 2 centers marked, I'll use the 2 circle dies from the Meet in the Middle dynamics to die cut holes. Okay, now I'm going to align the 2 panels together, and I'll trace those die cut holes to the mechanism building panel with my pencil. I'll also mark the centers of those holes, and I'll use my 1/16 inch long reach hole punch to punch the center holes. If you don't have a 1/16 inch hole punch, you can use a paper piercer and foam pad instead. Okay, I'm attaching a large linkage to the end of a medium linkage with a brad. You'll notice that I've placed the large one on top of the medium one, but this again is one of those things that's a bit arbitrary. This is how I did it and it worked, but I don't think this is one of those things that will make or break your mechanism. And I really like these little mini brads that I picked up from Art Impressions, but I think any size brad will work just fine. Now I'm connecting the 2 linkage pieces together using another brad, and I place the brad through the holes of the 2 large linkages. When they're connected, it should look like a little W. And you'll notice that I placed that brad through the holes with the brad head on the back of the W. This is temporary, and you'll see why in a minute. I've temporarily positioned the pull tab in the center of the panel and secured it with some removable tape. And then I'll secure the other 2 ends of the W to the panel using 2 more brads through the holes in the linkages and the panel. And let me just say that working with these teeny tiny brads is a real struggle with fingernails. Note to self, get your nails trimmed before the next video. Okay, once I have the last brads in place, I'll make sure that the pull tab is aligned. I want it to extend about 1/4 inch beyond the bottom of the panel, and I also want to make sure that the lowest points of the W are as close to the pull tab as they can be without interfering in the movement of the pull tab. You can see that the linkages move easily into position. And now that everything is in place, I'm pressing that center brad against the pull tab firmly enough to leave a mark. I reinforce that indentation with my pencil so I can see it better, and I'll use my 1/16 inch punch to punch that hole. I'll slide the pull tab back into place and remove that center brad on the W, only this time the head of the brad will be in the front rather than the back of the W. So I'll remove that center brad from the W, slide the pull tab back into place, and put the brad through the W and the pull tab with the brad head on the outside of the W. Now I'm marking the position of my pull tab at the top and bottom of the panel to make sure it's centered. And then I'll take out the collar piece that I previously die cut from printer paper. I'm folding it on the pre-scored lines to make a trifold, and I'll adhere it together with liquid adhesive. I've added some double-sided tape to the back of the collar, and once I remove the liner paper with my tweezers, I'll slide it onto the end of the pull tab and secure it towards the bottom edge of the panel. As an added measure to keep the pull tab aligned, I'm adding some pieces of 1/4 inch foam tape to either side of the pull tab, sliding each piece to just underneath the joints of the linkages. I'll leave the liner paper on the foam tape, as all I need it to do is to keep the pull tabs aligned. And then I'll use my scissors to trim out the excess portion of the pull tab. But before you cut it, make sure that the pull tab is pushed up and extends at the bottom about 1/4 inch. Now I'm stamping a prompt at the bottom of the pull tab using the word pull from the Interactive Label Stamp Set and some black licorice hybrid ink. I'm using my glue pen to adhere the 4 stacked donuts to the 2 outside linkages. I place them over the top of the brad. These donuts are used to extend from the mechanism to whatever you want to move, in this case the coffee cups. I've adhered 4 layers together, but I find that this still isn't enough depth to give the mechanism and the coffee cups enough clearance. You'll see what I mean in just a minute. There are a couple of things we can do to remedy this. But first, I'll use my eraser to erase all the pencil lines because I want to add a little sparkle to my image panel. I'm using the snowfall stencil and some glitter paste to create some snowflakes. This stuff dries really fast, so be sure and clean up your stencil with water right away. Now I'm adhering the snowdrifts to the image panel with a tape runner. And here's where I decided I needed a little more lift on those donuts. I'm adhering 2 layers of foam squares on top of those donuts, and as long as the foam squares don't stick directly to the brad heads, everything should move just fine. I'll temporarily position the image panel on top of the mechanism panel, and you can see that the foam squares are popping through those holes on the image panel. That's exactly what I wanted. But I want to make sure my coffee cups are positioned correctly, so I'll do a dry run by adhering them to the foam squares. I'm using that pencil mark that I left at the top of the image panel to sort of eyeball where the coffee cups should be placed. And once I have them where I want them, I'll pull on that pull tab. Perfect! Now I can carefully remove the coffee cups from the foam squares, and before I do anything else, I want to place a small piece of foam tape onto the pull tab just above the top of the collar. This will act as my stopper to make sure that the coffee cups don't over-rotate when I pull on my pull tab. Now that my test run was successful, I can assemble the rest of my card. I've added a double layer of foam squares around the outside of the mechanism panel, and I'm adhering the image panel so that everything lines up. And now I can permanently adhere the coffee cups to the exposed foam squares, again using that pencil mark at the top of the panel to position them correctly. Sorry that my big head got in the way. I'm using some tape runner adhesive on the back of the assembled panel, and I'll adhere it to an A2 horizontal top folding poppy card base. And as my final detail, I've stamped a sentiment from the new Cup of Love stamp set onto some craft cardstock using black licorice ink, and I die cut it using the Skinny Strips Dynamics. I've adhered it to the card using foam squares. How stinking cute is that? I think this would be a super cute card to send to anyone who loves coffee, especially this time of year. I've listed all the products that I use below in the description box and on my blog. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to leave me a comment below. Thanks so much for watching my video. I really hope you'll give it a try yourself. Be sure and subscribe to the MFT YouTube channel so you don't miss any of the great content we have here. And have a spectacular day.